Welcome to Season 2 of the Pure Heart Church podcast. My name is Zach Good. I have the awesome opportunity to be the producer on this podcast, and I think we've got a great episode for you today. So whether you're part of our church community or you're just tuning in, we're so glad that you're here with us today. You know, one of our mission statements here at Pure Heart Church is that it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to pretend, and it's not okay to stay stuck. We have an awesome guest who is coming to talk about that very thing. One of the organizations that we get to partner with here at Pure Heart Church is Crossroads, and they help people get out of their drug addictions and back into a good, healthy lifestyle. And so Sam Carter, who has worked with Crossroads before and also just has a huge heart for people who are stuck in addiction, he's going to be sharing his testimony and many other things today, and so it's going to be a great time. We're so glad that you're here with us today on the Pure Heart Church podcast. Let's jump right in.
So we have an amazing person on the podcast today. We're so excited that they're here. And their story is so fantastic of how God took them from a place of brokenness and fear for their life and circumstances that they didn't know how to move away from to now they're actually healing and helping people that were in those circumstances. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Samuel Carter from Phoenix, Arizona, and the way I got to where I'm at actually started before drug use. I definitely believe that God gave me a heart for people, even at a young age. But I struggled with finding a peer group. Part of that was I had major ADHD and kind of trying to figure out, my parents noticed like, hey, our son has a bit of a chemical imbalance, and that made me a pretty easy target. I always tell people, like, if I was a child and I saw me, I probably would have picked on me. Couldn't pass it up. Struggled in elementary school a bit, both socially and academically. Was homeschooled for a while by my mom. That was a great experience. Taught me a lot, continues to teach me a lot, as well as my father. But re-entering into public school around junior high and then high school, that's when I started kind of trying to figure out what the world looked like. I was raised in a very devout Christian home. Parents both loved me. We attended church every Sunday, Wednesday nights, and I enjoyed it. But I also wanted to be accepted by people that weren't a part of the church. And the people that accepted me accepted parts of me that they wanted to accept. Not everybody. I had some very good friends too, but I started pursuing friendships more that didn't require all of the necessities of a solid friendship. And essentially it got to the point where we're friends because we smoke marijuana together, or because addiction is progressive by nature, because we do XYZ together. At 18, I found out I had an inheritance of money, and I have to laugh at this. There's some days where I think about it of like, man, that'd be nice to still have. But the good state of Arizona thought it would be a good idea to give an 18-year-old a decent amount of money. I'm not blaming them. I'm just joking. So I paid my own tuition to go to GCU the first time. Made it a semester, went to 2 classes, and what I mean by that is I was physically present for 2 periods of 2 different classes. That was it. Got dismissed, and I did what a insecure college student would do. I found the group there as well that loved to party and just get into mischief. But the further and further my addiction got, this is debatable what I'm about to say, but like the fun, somewhat innocent mischief that you got into at the beginning was no longer innocent. Money was starting to disappear. I had no account for where my money was going. It was becoming clear to my parents, something's wrong with our son. Our son is struggling with something. They never looked at me as, you're the problem, but you clearly have a problem. Bought property with some of the money that I had and trying to turn money into more money, rented that out. Problem with that is that I got more money and experimented with more drugs. And it eventually led to, I came into the the world of opiates somewhat at the tail end of when the government started cracking down a lot more on
sure.
how many you can prescribe.
Yep.
But when I first started doing it, I mean, me and I had a buddy. We drove around in the course of one day, and he probably got 3 different prescriptions of different
Wow.
milligrams of OxyContin. Unfortunately, people that were also trying to help didn't realize that by cracking down on pharmaceutical medication that's being abused, they made it more expensive, and they made other street narcotic medications less expensive. So that's when heroin came into the picture, and meth came into the picture after that, and then just kind of whatever after that. And it led me to a place of severe depression. It made me a liar. I chose to do that. At times, it made me just a very angry kid. I was never very violent. I could be at times, but I was very verbally rude and mean. And days came where I remember my dad, tears in his eyes. He said, "Son, you can't live here anymore." Moved into my home, lived there for a while, got out of control again, was making this train wreck after train wreck of bad decisions. And I ended up going to treatment for the first time.
At about how old?
Oh my gosh. 22
Okay.
years old. I'm 30 now.
So about 3-4 years of really following this lifestyle.
Roughly, yeah. I started looking at Jesus in a way that I hadn't looked at him before. Not that I had been taught the gospel wrong, just it didn't mean to me what it meant then. But I was also 22 years old. So I stayed for a while, left, came back very shortly after, stayed for a while, learned a little bit more, left again. And then what really ended up driving it home is I found myself, I was living in the home that I had bought and had previously been renting out, and was in a really dangerous situations, dangerous people with dangerous intentions. And there were times where I felt I didn't have control over my mind anymore, which is bad, because I would much rather not know that. But I was in a place where I did know that, where I'm not thinking properly. There's paranoia. There's hallucinations, like audio, visual. That didn't happen all the time, but it happened enough. And got involved with people that were not good. I was always looking over my shoulder. I was always had a major paranoia, and it started getting to the point where I would wake up. If I slept, there'd be times where I would be up for a week, maybe more, just so under the influence and being afraid to go to sleep because I wasn't sure if someone would hurt me. But I would wake up and just kind of ask the realistic question of, like, is today going to be my last day? Is somebody going to kill me? Am I going to hurt somebody else? Am I going to overdose? And one night, a couple of events happened that told me that I needed to leave my home. And I could have beat Usain Bolt with how fast I ran out of my home, just due to fear and just wanting to be done. And I called my mom and I said, "Hey, I'm finally out," because I couldn't see them much anymore. I didn't want them being seen affiliated with me due to danger or retaliation from others. And I don't entirely remember everything that happened. I was out of it, but they sent me back to the mission, where I ended up staying for about 18 months. I went through the worst detox in my life that I don't wish on anybody. You don't sleep. It's very hard to eat. You have control over nothing, mentally, physically, any way you slice it. And people just loved me. I had a man that would actually pick me up because I would, not to be too descriptive, but just to show the love of people and where I was at, how sin had really entered my life and affected me the way it affected me. But I couldn't keep food down. And I would be laying in the bunk that they gave me and couldn't keep the food down, and he would come and have to pick me up and move me to another bed because I couldn't get out of bed, laying and all of that. And it was acts of kindness and love like that that carried me through quite a bit. But I started really praying to God because I didn't verbalize it, and I don't know if it was the thought then, but I realized it's how I felt. It was this like, God, I don't know if I know who you are. I've heard about you a lot. I believe in you. I've never questioned if you're not there. I've seen you work in other people's lives, so I know that, like, this isn't a joke, like, this isn't a sham, but I don't really know if I've seen you work in my life. I don't know if things were by chance. I don't know if it was just somebody else helping me who the Holy Spirit didn't prompt at all. I don't know where I stand with you. I do believe that you love me, but I don't know you. And I started praying, and I started reading my Bible, and I started asking questions that maybe I was kind of afraid to ask. And I had some people that really poured into me, specifically a couple of men that worked there, counselors and directors. And one of them, he would tell guys often of, do you know the Lord? Where are you at with the Lord? And he would say this a number of different ways. And I would think to myself, or sometimes he would kind of ask me, and I'd kind of be like, yeah, and kind of indirectly. But I heard him say once, he says, I don't want you all to get healthy and get a job and go back with your family and go to hell. Be clean and sober and still go to hell. And that resonated with me. And I forgot about that for a while, but I've thought of it within the recent months of like, oh my gosh. And I didn't want that. I wanted to know Jesus, and Jesus Christ, for that matter, the second member of the Trinity in the Bible. I wanted to know who he was, and he started revealing himself to me through the Bible, through other people, through prayer. Supernatural events took place in my life, and what I mean by supernatural is he restored things that nothing else can restore. No medication can give you back innocence. He restored that in me in some areas. He restored my heart for people and trust in people and accepting of people. I mean, addiction did a damage on me on how I viewed people, even to the point of certain races of people. It was bad, and God healed that. And I'm almost done.
You're good. You're good.
God really healed that and continues to heal that sometimes. I know that Satan tries to jump on your back again and say, no, you haven't been healed of that. You still struggle with that. And maybe that's true sometimes, but God reminds me of just like, whether you've been completely delivered of that or whether it's in progress, like I will finish what I started, just as his word says. But I decided after feeling prompted by the Spirit that I needed to try to go back to school. I had signed up originally for counseling, emphasized with chemical dependency. And I...
In the beginning?
In the beginning.
Yeah, so you signed up for that in the beginning?
No, so in the beginning at GCU, I signed up for criminal justice studies and then realized I was well on my way to becoming a criminal. So maybe that's why it didn't work out. But after going through treatment, I signed back up, got re-enrolled in school. Shortly after that, I came to Crossroads. I was looking around for jobs. Crossroads came up. I had an interview. They brought me in. They were very kind to me, and I've gotten married since working here to a beautiful, beautiful, very kind woman. Loves the Lord, loves me, loves her family. She is a amazing treasure and gift that God has given me for sure. But and that's where I'm at now. I love people, and I love. A friend of mine said, the few, the last, and the lost. which is kind of where you're at when you're in addiction. But
Can you unpack that again a little bit more? What does that mean?
yeah, so like the few, the last, and the lost. This is not my statement. A friend of mine said this a while back. I think it was even published, but essentially, like when you're coming into treatment, and I mean, even if you ask some members of society, uh, people struggling with addiction, people that are on the streets, you look at them when you're driving by, and it's just like a couple questions come to mind usually. Man, where did it go wrong? And my gosh, that's tragic. And then you keep going where you're going. I don't blame anybody for doing that. All I'm saying is it's very easy to forget, like, that person also has a history. They were not always on the street, which is how you can forget. The last is sometimes you're the last to be helped. You see that even in the medical field sometimes. If people know that you're struggling with substances, they want to be able to help you, but sometimes they'll bar you from certain treatments that you do need. And of course, the family. The family doesn't want you anymore in some cases. Fortunately, mine did. They had to draw a serious boundary. And those are the kind of people that come into treatment. They're forgotten. They're last in line for whatever they're waiting for. And they're lost too. They're just struggling. Yeah.
As we wrap up, just tell us a quick one or two things of something you go, this exemplifies like a win. This exemplifies this person that I go, this is what I strive to see for everybody, or what I want for everybody, or where they came from to where they are now. What are one or two of those that kind of drive you?
Just two, huh? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. One, actually, very recently, as a matter of fact, today, there's a man I know that, and I've known him for a while. He was in our program, and I won't say names or anything, just to kind of protect him in a way. I'm sure he'd share it with you. But he was one of those clients where, and there's a couple people like this, but he was one of those clients where he was almost just too smart for his own good. And it made it even harder because he also knew that, which is very tough in recovery. He'll be the first to tell you he was a little bit of a cynic of other people and just struggled. And sometimes you have those people where it's like, God, I know you don't give up on anybody, but I am at the point of doing that right now. And there were some days where I honestly did. He disappeared for a while, had to focus on a couple things in his life, came back, started volunteering, and our Crossroads actually just hired him as of yesterday, I believe. And it's just one of those guys where it's like, man, if you can make it, anybody can make that. And I mean that in the most respectful way towards this guy. There are other people. I will say this: women in addiction sexes go through different things in different ways, but we've had, I'll just say there's a couple of moms where they came in and it's just like, I don't know how to take care of this kid. I have no help. I'm on probation. I don't have enough time. How do I, like we talked about a bit earlier before the podcast, how do I pay for daycare? Like, what do I do? Just panic. Same with the fathers. And they are patient and they take the skills that we offer them. They address their trauma. They are patient on not getting a job right away. They focus on themselves. They focus on how well do I actually know my child? And some of the strongest women have come out of this program. They know their kids know them. They have a good job in a safe environment. They're off of probation. That's not just one person. That's quite a few, both men and women. But those are two things. They're general, but you see it often. Yeah.
I love that. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people that are in recovery organizations, they go, there's the ones that keep us going, because we see that God can do work. God can do amazing things. He can do miracles.
You can. Well, and it's final thought on that with me. I would be lying if, and my coworkers would support this, there are many days where you hear a lot more, or at least it feels like it. You hear a lot more cries of defeat than you do of victory. Most of the time, that just means that maybe this wasn't the place where they got it. Maybe they need to come back a couple of times. But somewhere down the line, you hear that something clicked. But when it does click, you want to shout it from the rooftops. The feeling that it gives you of seeing somebody realize that they are loved by people, realizing that they're loved by the Lord. I say this jokingly, but I'd be fine if I didn't get paid that week. That's the payment that we get, and it's awesome.
As a last thing, I think we'd be remiss if we had a podcast like this where we didn't give some steps. There's people that are listening that right now they're in that place where you were at, where they go, I need to leave this, but I don't know how. I don't know, how do I get myself out of this situation I'm in? What would be one or two steps that you just go, here's how you start?
Here's how you start. First off, by saying exactly what you just said. Verbalize where you're at. Verbalize that you do need help, and that it's okay to, just like Pure Heart says, it's okay to not be okay, but you've stayed here long enough. That's what I say. You have stayed here long enough. You've lived this way long enough, and express that you need help. That's when you want to start looking at, how do I get into treatment? With Crossroads, it's made very, very simple. Those are two basic steps. There's a lot of steps to recovery, but those are the two first ones to do.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So good. Thanks for your willingness to share your story, and thank you so much for being a part of that and letting God use your story.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me talk your ear off a bit there too. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure that you subscribe or follow our podcast so that you don't miss an episode. We have a lot of awesome episodes coming up that you're not going to want to miss in season 2 of the Pure Heart Church podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we love you, Pure Heart family.